Hello, everybody. Hello, my geometry classes. This is the second lecture that I'll be posting up for you guys for this week's assignments. There'll be two assignments this week coming up. I'll be posting this one tonight, Sunday, and the next one will be posted Tuesday night. So you guys can watch it and get ready for the questions on Wednesday and Thursday and leading into Friday. Okay, so this is going to be the lecture for the section called Similar Polygons. That'll be the name of your assignment in Schoology. It'll say Similar Polygons. So let's go ahead and take a look at the definitions first. This is going to be a little bit of review also. You have seen this before, but it's been a while since we've seen it. So again, just a little bit of practice, a little bit of review before we go on to the next section. A couple of announcements. Make sure you are paying attention to the due dates on your assignments. The due dates are listed in Schoology right underneath the name of the assignment. You'll see the due date. I believe our first assignment is going to be due this coming Wednesday, April 8th, I believe. So make sure you check that on Schoology. Check the due dates. Okay. And also, if you're having problems downloading your TI Inspire software, make sure you get with me during our conference times, our video conference times, so that I can help you with downloading your TI software. Okay. Don't forget that the videos, guys, you can view these videos directly through Schoology. You can stream them through Schoology. If you're having a hard time streaming it, download the video. Okay. Download the video so that you can actually watch it offline. It's very simple. Underneath the video, there's a blue hyperlink with the name of the file. Click on that. It'll download it for you. These videos are long. They're lengthy. So what I suggest, start downloading it the night before so that go to sleep and in the morning you'll have it downloaded. Okay. It's probably best to have it downloaded on your screen, on your computer. That way you can reference it whenever you want, even if you don't have access to the internet or if you're offline. They're trying to work on Schoology to make it a little bit faster. So if you're still having problems logging in to Schoology just to even view the assignment or to view the video, not necessarily the video conference, that should be changing shortly. Okay. EPISD has already put in a work order with the company that owns Schoology. So things should be getting better. Now, one last thing. Remember, the video conferences are just for questions. Okay. Our video conferences, guys, is not class. Okay. This is class right here. You watching the video, you doing your assignments, that's class. Okay. The video conferencing is just for questions. You can still stop by if you want to say hi. If you feel better checking in, okay, you can check in, but I'm not taking attendance during the video conferences. It's just simply reserved for questions on the assignment, questions on any of our processes, questions on trying to download your calculator, anything like that. Okay. All right. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with this next section, similar polygons. Okay. And sorry about that. Okay. So here is our screen. Let me erase that real quick. Okay. Similar polygons. You should be familiar with these definitions by now. If not, here's a quick refresher. Similar polygons are polygons with the same shape but different size. Okay. Similar, of course, is different from congruent, and we've talked about this before. Congruent means that everything is the same. The angles are the same and the sides are the same. But with similar is a little bit different. The shapes look the same, but the sizes are different. Okay. Again, this should be review from what we talked about before going on spring break. Two things have to be met in order for polygons to be similar. They have to have congruent corresponding angles. The corresponding angles are congruent. Okay. What does that mean? That means that all the angles are equal to each other. The corresponding angles are equal to each other. Number two, all corresponding sides are proportional. Okay. What does that mean? Proportionality, in case you've forgotten, simply means this. Okay. Hopefully you can see that a little bit better. Okay, in order for two things to be proportional, you can set them up as two ratios equal to each other, and then you can take the cross products. Okay, and this would also be this would also be true. A times D is equal to B times C. Okay, and that's all that means. If two things are proportional, that means that you can take the cross product and they'll be equal to each other. All right. So just a little bit reminder, that's from our last lecture. Okay. So those are the only two things that need to be met as far as requirements go for similar polygons. Okay. Just a couple other things. The similarity symbol, okay, remember, it looks like this. Okay, it's a little wavy line. All right. Before, we used to have the congruent symbol, which was the wavy line with the equal sign underneath it. Similarity is just the wavy sign. Okay. A valid statement must match corresponding angles and sides. A similar statement for the triangle that's listed in the picture above, which is right here. Okay, so here's the two triangles. Triangle ABC is similar to triangle DEF. Okay, by that definition, that means that all the corresponding angles are congruent, right? They're equal to each other. And the corresponding sides are proportional. And basically that just means that you can set those up into proportions, take the cross product, and they should be equal to each other. And we're going to see some examples of that here in just a bit. Okay, hopefully don't forget that you can pause the video at any time to take notes on anything that I'm talking about. Okay, if I forget to remind you to pause the video, just remember on your own. If there's something you need to write down or whatnot, just go ahead and pause the video. Okay, let's go and take a look at our first example here. Let me zoom in on that. Oops. Okay, in this first example, it wants you to list all the congruent angles and write a proportion that relates to the corresponding sides. Okay, so we're just simply going to list. Okay, all right, so what I'm going to use is I'm going to use this statement that I have up here. Remember, this statement is very powerful. It holds a lot of power. And actually, I'm going to go ahead and bring back the little grid that we've used before. That way, it can help me kind of organize my thoughts. JKL, and then PMN. PMN. Okay, that's going to help me organize my thoughts. This statement basically is telling me everything I need to know about the congruencies of the angles and the proportionality of the sides. Okay, sometimes looking at the picture itself, looking at the figure, doesn't tell us much. If I were to have to come up with all the corresponding angles and all the corresponding sides based off of this picture, that might be a little hard. Notice that the picture, the orientation has changed. This triangle kind of went, and then got bigger. So use this to kind of help you. It works kind of the same way as congruency works. Similarity just means, again, the angles are still congruent. It's the sides that have changed a little bit, but they still correspond to each other. Okay, so let's go ahead and write out all the statements for the angles and then all the statements for the sides. Okay, so I'll start with angle J is similar, and using this statement, using this grid, I can quickly see that angle J is similar or corresponds to angle P. In fact, they are congruent, because by definition, if two polygons are similar, their angles are going to be congruent. So angle J is the same measurement as angle P. Okay. Next, I'm going to go ahead and go with angle K. Angle K. Angle K is going to be congruent to angle M, according to my grid. Okay. So angle K, I'll put 2 marks there is congruent to angle M. And the last one we're going to do is angle L. And that's going to be congruent to angle N. N as in Nancy. Okay, angle N. So angle L, I'll put 3 marks there. And angle N, 3 marks there. Okay, so that's the list of all the congruent angles. And I'm going to go ahead and write a list of the proportions as it relates to the corresponding sides. Okay, so since there's 3 possible proportions I can come up with, I'm just going to list them all 3 at a time, and you'll see how this looks like. It'll be very similar to your assignment when you start working on the assignment. Okay, I'm going to start with side JK. So here's JK, side JK. And that corresponds to side PM, according to this. I don't even have to look at the picture. Okay, I'm using this, side PM. Those two correspond with each other. Okay, that's going to be proportional to another side. I'm going to start with all the sides on the left triangle first. That's the top part of this grid. Okay, so we had side JK. Now let's use side JL. JL. Okay. So side JL is proportional to side PN. They correspond with each other. Okay. And since there's 3 sides, I'm going to also say that that's also equal to or proportional to KL. That's what's left over because we did JK, we did JL. Now the last possible combination is KL. And that side corresponds to side MN. Okay. So there's the proportion that I've written that relates to the corresponding sides between these 2 triangles. Okay. Notice I really didn't use the picture that much. If I have this statement, the statement pretty much tells me everything I need to know. Remember, this is very powerful, this statement. You can set up your grid kind of to help organize your thoughts. And that's how I was able to list the angles that were congruent and list the sides that were proportional. Okay. If you have questions on this problem, make sure you come to our video conference when on your scheduled times. Okay. You'll have a problem like this on your assignment today, or on your assignment whenever you get a chance to work on it. Okay. From there, let's going to go on to our next example. Here it is. Okay. This next example, it says the figure below, if the figure below are similar, the figures, are similar with a scale factor of 6 to 5, find the value of x. Okay, this is going to be fairly simple. What you're going to do here is that you're going to take your scale factor. Okay, it's a 6 to 5 scale factor, your ratio. Remember, the ratio and the scale factor are kind of describe the same thing, and we're just simply looking for the value of x. Okay, normally when we have a question like this, we need to know at least one other side so that we can set up our proportions, take the cross product, and then solve for x. But since we only have one side listed here, in fact, we don't even have one side listed here. We're going to just consider this side x. And we only have one side listed here, we're going to go ahead and use our proportion to finish writing our proportion. Okay, and I'm sorry, we're going to use the ratio. This is our ratio to find the proportion. Okay, the scale factor, the ratio, that's kind of the same thing. All right, so let's go ahead and see how we would do something like that. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to set up a fraction, okay, or a ratio for the first part. And I'm going to use just the information that I have here. I have an x and I have a 28. So I'm going to make that into a fraction. Okay, and I'm going to use the ratio to finish off the proportion on this side. Now, how do I know where the 6 goes and where the 5 goes? Well, it's fairly simple. Okay, if you look here, what number is bigger between 6 and 5? It's going to be the 6, right? So the 6 is going to represent the bigger figure. So which is the bigger figure, this one or this one? It's going to be this one, right? So the x is going to go across from the 6. So the 6 will go here. It corresponds with the triangle with the x. And the 5 is going to go down here. This is the smaller triangle, right? The 28 is the smaller triangle. Okay. Now that we have our proportion, we can go ahead and do the cross multiplication, right? X times 5, well, that's 5x. 28 times 6. And now we can either solve this by hand, or we can solve this in our TI Inspires using NSolve. Okay, so let me go ahead and do that real quick. It's going a little slow here. There we go. Okay, so our menu, algebra, numerical solve. Okay, we're going to plug in our equation exactly the way we see it. If you're following along in your notes, that equation is 5x is equal to 28 times 6. Okay. Before I close off that master set of parentheses, I'm going to go ahead and tell the calculator that I'm looking for the variable x. Oops. Okay. Now that I have it in there, I'm going to go ahead and hit enter, and our x is going to be 33.6. Okay. X will be 33.6. When you're working on your assignment, if you do get a decimal, make sure that you round it to the first decimal spot. This one was a real nice decimal. It actually came out exactly to the first decimal spot. But if you get something with more numbers after the decimal, just round it to the first decimal, okay? And you'll have instructions like that on your assignment today, or when you work on it. Okay, so there's example number 5. Again, if you have questions on this, on how I did any of that, come to our video conference so that you can ask. Okay. Okay. From there, let's go on to our next example. Example 3. Okay. Move this out of the way. Okay. In example 3, it tells us if PQRS, okay, that's this figure here, PQRS. If PQRS is similar to WXYZ, find the value of X, okay? Now again, remember, this statement holds a lot of power. It basically tells us everything we need to know. Now, just to be on the safe side, I'm going to go ahead and put that into a grid, okay? That's going to be 4 spaces. Hope I have enough room here. Okay, so PQRS I'm going to put on the top, PQRS, and then WXYZ I'll put at the bottom, WXYZ. Okay, this is going to help me out tremendously. All right, now the trick is here, we're trying to solve for X, okay, not this X, okay, this X is the point of this polygon, but this X right here, the length of this side, SR. Okay, so that's going to be a big hint for me. I'm going to go ahead and put that as my first number in my ratio. Okay, SR has to correspond with one of the sides here. Okay, looking at the 2 pictures, it's going to be very hard for me to really decide which side SR is corresponding to on this polygon. Okay, but that's where this is going to come in handy. Okay, look at SR. SR is right here, SR. That's going to correspond to side ZY. If I look over here, ZY is right here. That's 32. So the 32, I'm going to put down here at the bottom. Okay. Now, when I do my next proportion, the order that I went in was the bigger polygon first because that's where the x came from. Okay, so I'm going to pick another number on this polygon. Okay, that number is 75. That's what's going to go across over here, 75. Okay, so 75 corresponds to side PS. Okay, well, 75 is side PS. So let's look up here, let's look for PS. PS is right here, PS. And that's going to correspond to side WZ in the other polygon. So let me look for WZ, here's WZ, and there's the number I'm looking for to put into my fraction, to my proportion. Okay, now that I have this set up, this is the hard part. If you don't set this up correctly, you're going to get the wrong answer. Okay, there are different ways of setting up proportions. We've talked about those in class prior to this, but if you don't know how to set it up a different way, just go with the way I've shown you today. Okay, all right, in that case, let's go ahead and take the cross product. X times 40 is 40x, and then we have 32 times 75. Okay, again, if you want to solve by hand, you can definitely solve this by hand. I'm not going to go ahead and do that on the video because I want to keep the video a little bit shorter. I know my last video was pretty long, so I'm just trying to keep them a little bit shorter. So let's go ahead and put this into nsolve, and then we'll get the answer. If you need me to show you how to solve this by hand, please come to the video lecture so I can show that to you. Okay, so let's go ahead and put that into nsolve. Okay, plug it in exactly the way you see it. 40x is equal to, is equal to 32 times 75. Okay, just the way you see it. Before we close out the master parentheses, let's go ahead and tell the calculator I'm solving for comma x. Hit enter, and we'll get your answer. X is equal to 60. Okay, and that'll be your answer. Again, if you need help with this problem, come to the video conference or anything else you have on your assignments so that you can ask your questions. Okay, that was example number 3. Just a few more, and then you guys can go ahead and try your assignments on your own. All right, example 4 is going to be this one down here. Okay, in this example, it wants us to find the value of x. Now we're going to take the same approach. Notice that now we have our x's involved with polynomials. A polynomial is a number that has more than one term. Okay, so you can see here this is 2 terms here, 2 terms here, and we're showing x's on both sides. Don't be alarmed by that. Okay, we'll still be able to go through something like this. Let me show you how to do this problem. All right, so anytime you see something like this statement right here, remember how powerful that statement is? I'm going to go ahead and set up my grid, just because I know that helps me organize my thoughts. Hopefully that helps you too. Okay, the first part of the statement I'm going to put in the top, T L Y, and the second part of the statement, CHK, I'm going to put it down here, CHK. And now I know what angles and what sides correspond to each other. And that's going to help me when I set up my proportion. That's what we're going to do here, is set up a proportion. Okay, so I'll go ahead and start on the left side. Of course, I'm going to pick the statement that has the x in it, and I'm going to make that first, just to make things a little bit easier. So 4x minus 1. Okay, now 4x minus 1 is side LY. LY is right here. Okay, to find the corresponding side of LY, I just look down here at the bottom, and it's going to be side HK. So I'm going to go down here. HK is the other term that has the x, which is great. X plus 5. X plus 5. Okay. Now I'm going to set up my second proportion. Let me see if I can zoom out here. Oops. Still learning how to use this stuff. Okay, so I'm going to come back. I started on the left side, so I'm going to come back and start on the left side again for my second proportion. Okay, so the only other information I have here is that this side is 25. So 25 is going to go across from the 4x minus 1. Okay, 25 is side TL. Okay, according to this, TL corresponds to side CH on the other triangle. CH is right here, and 10 is the number that I'm going to put down here at the bottom. Okay. Now, you have to be careful here. Before you can take the cross product, you always want to protect your polynomials with parentheses. Okay? Protect your polynomials with parentheses. There's a tongue twister there for you. All right? Now that you've done this, we can go ahead and take our cross product. 4x minus 1 times 10, I'm going to write it down here. Generally, I'm going to keep the monomial on the outside of the parentheses and the polynomial on the inside of the parentheses. Kind of just the way you see it. If you put the 10 out here on the right side afterwards, there's nothing wrong with that. NSolve will still solve it. This is just the general form that mathematicians like to work with. But if you do 10 over here, it won't mess up anything. You'll still be able to get the right answer in NSolve. Okay, same thing here. We take the cross product, x plus 5 times 25. Just because I want it to look nice and neat, I'm going to put the 25 on the outside of the parentheses, and then the x plus 5, I'll keep that inside the parentheses. Oops. Can't see that. Oh. There we go. Okay, so now I have something that I can put into NSolve. Okay, again, if you are solving by hand, you're more than welcome to. But if you want to use NSolve, I'm going to go ahead and do that just because it's a little bit faster. So let's go ahead and plug that into the calculator. Menu 3, numerical solve. Okay, type it in exactly the way you wrote it down. 10 times 4x minus 1 is equal to 25 times x plus 5. Okay. Of course, I'm going to go ahead and put comma x before I close out the last set of parentheses. Close it out. That's telling the calculator that I want you to solve this equation for x. Hit enter, and you'll see that we get is x is equal to 9. X is equal to 9. And there's our answer. Okay. The last example that I'm going to show you guys, and you guys can get started, is going to be example number 5. Okay. In this example, guys, it's the same thing. They want you to use, given that it's a similar polygon, they want you to use proportions to find the value of each variable in this case. Now, what that means is that now we have an x to solve for and a y to solve for, but that's not going to change anything. We'll still follow the same process, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. Let's do that real quick here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and work with the x first, all right? I'll work with the x first. Now that I have my statement here, I'm going to go ahead and write that down in the grid, because that's just going to help make my life a little bit easier. Okay. JKL is going to go up here. JKL and NML is going to go down here. All right. So now I'm going to go and start setting up my proportions. First, I want to solve for x. So I'm going to work exclusively with x first. So x is going to be on this left triangle here, and I'm going to use that first in my proportion. Okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and pick. Well, I'm going to choose the corresponding side to go down here. So if x is part of KL, KL corresponds to side ML, and ML is right here. ML. Okay. So the number that's going to go on the bottom is 14. Okay. Now I'm going to go back here, and it's going to be a little bit tricky. I have to be careful on what exactly I am looking for, okay? Because you can really mess things up, being that there's two variables here, all right? I want to leave y alone, because y I'm going to use in just a bit. So y is side ln. So the side I want to stay away from right now is lj. So I don't want to use this number. I'm going to end up using this number instead. Okay, so 40 is going to go right here. Before, you could really just pick anything else if you're working with one variable, but in this case, since we're working with two variables, you have to be careful with what you pick. All right, so I'm going to use 40. 40 is side jk. jk is right here. jk corresponds to side nm. So on the smaller triangle, we'll look for nm. nm, and 16 is the number that I'm going to put down here. Okay, notice how I did that. There was a really big chance of screwing this up, being that we have two variables. We have to be a little bit more careful, a little more cautious on what numbers we pick. All right. Okay, from that point, we can go ahead and cross multiply. X times 16 is 16x, and then we have 14 times 40. Okay, put that into NSolve real quick. Menu, algebra, numerical solve. 16x is equal to 14 times 40, comma x. Okay, so our first x value is going to be 35. Well, our x value, sorry, is 35. That's our first value. Okay, we're going to repeat the process, but now we're going to be using y. Okay, so y, let me move this over a little bit. Okay, I'm going to start off with y here. All right, now of course I'm going to look for the corresponding side to y. So if y is on, now it's on the smaller triangle, y is ln. Okay, so here's ln. The corresponding side is going to be lj on the bigger triangle. So let's look for lj. Okay, so lj, let's straighten this out here. lj is 45 on the bigger triangle, so that 45 is going to go down here. Okay. Now again, since I'm working with two variables, I want to make sure that I'm picking numbers that's not going to include this x. Okay, so the side I want to stay away from, if x is KL, the corresponding side I want to stay away from is ML on the smaller triangle. ML is 14, so I don't want to use ML. I want to use the 16 instead. Okay, so the 16 is going to go up here, right? Because y is on the smaller triangle. So when we make the second proportion, 16 is on the smaller triangle. So we're going to use 16. We don't want to use 14 for this problem. Okay. Now 16 is the side MN. MN is right here, and the corresponding side, according to the grid, is KJ. So now I look for KJ. KJ is right here, and that's 40. So that's what's going to go here. Okay. And now I can do the cross product and look for y. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so that's going to be y times 40 is 40y, and then 45 times 16. Okay, let's go ahead and plug that into NSolve. We have, let's go to menu first, algebra, numerical solve. We'll do 40y. Oops. I was not paying attention there. I'm just going to start all over. Okay, algebra, numerical solve, 40y. That's going to be equal to 45 times 16. And then, of course, we're using a y instead, so we're not going to do comma x. If you do comma x by accident, you're going to get an error saying something weird. Make sure you do y in this case, okay, comma y. Whatever variable you're looking for, that's the variable you're going to want to put here. Hit enter, and we're going to get that our y is equal to 18. Okay, and that solves for both the x and the y, okay, using proportions. All right, so that's what your assignment is going to include. All 5 problems that I just did right now are going to be included in your assignment. They're going to look just like this, okay? Again, if you have questions, come to our video conference. That's why I try to post the assignments the night before. That way you have time to download the video. That way you have time to look at the video and look at the assignments so that you can come to class with questions, okay? So come to class with questions. I'm not taking roll. If you know what you're doing, you can come in, you can check in if you want and say hi if you want, but really the video conferences are going to be primarily for questions, okay? Hopefully you guys get a chance to start working on this, and we will see you at our video conference, okay? I'm going to bring this back up here. All right, so wrestling shirt of the day. It's my WrestleMania shirt for this year. Hope you guys have a good time. Stay safe. Too sweet, guys. We'll see you later.